Next, we need some bump for the texture because right now everything is just color. The first bump detail I want to add is a slight bump around the holes. So to do that, I'm going to copy this map range node and I'm going to change this to 0.2 and 0.35. There we go. And then I'm going to add a color ramp node. I will use a white key at the center and 2 black key on the sides, like this. So before it's something like this, but now it's something like this. You see, I'm isolating the edge around the holes. But right now, if I use this to create the bump map, it's gonna be a sharp bump like this. I don't want that. I want a curved bump like this. So to do that, I will simply create a RGB curve node. And I'm going to change this to something like a bell curve. And now I can use this to create a bump map. So create vector bump, this go to the height, and this normal will go to the normal input of the principal shader. There we go. However, the bump is a little too strong, so I'm going to lower the distance to something smaller. This eyeball is pretty small, and this is 1 centimeter bump, so it has to be in the range of something below 1 millimeter. So let's add 20 and see how it looks. And I think it's still too much, so let's divide this by 2 to turn it into something like this. Maybe this is good, but let's just lower it even more. Yeah, this is good. You can also create some bump map for the layers below, but for me, I just need the bump on the top layer. And next, I want some fibrous bump around the iris like this. And to do that, I will reuse this texture coordinate. And let's use another Voronoi texture. And let's see the Voronoi. This one should be much smaller than before. Something like this, maybe even smaller. Yeah, maybe this is good. And I want to stretch it some more towards the center. So I'm gonna create a vector map node. And I will multiply this with 1, 1, and this should be around 0.2. There we go. So it's kind of stretched toward the center like that. And I can use this as the height map for another layer of bump. You can create another bump map like this, or you can just add this into this. But for the sake of ease of control, I'm gonna create another bump map like so. So now using 2 bump maps, I can control the 2 bump channels separately like so. So this one, let's say something like 0.0001. Okay. And let's replace the bump map like so. And let's see. I think this is too much. And yeah, I think that much. And I think the fiber is a little too small. So I'm going to make it a little bigger. 80. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. And I also want this bump to control the color of the eye a little bit more. So this is the color of the eye. I'm going to create a RGB curve node and increase the brightness a little bit. And I will use this Voronoi texture as the factor to control the brightness increase. So it's something like this. All right. We are almost there, but there are 2 things I want to add. The first thing is called heterochromia. Basically, some people have multiple colors within the same iris. So in this case, I want the center to have like a different color than the outside. And the second detail I want to add is a dark ring around the iris like this. So anyway, let's add the heterochromia first. Let's go back around here. And this time we will create a texture coordinate. There we go. And we will use the object texture coordinate here. Okay. So create a texture Voronoi, maybe noise. Yeah, noise is better. In this case, let's say 50, 80. Yeah, I think 80 is good. and maybe increase the details a bit. Now we need to increase the contrast of this noise texture a little bit. So create a map range node and set this to something like 0.3 and this to 0.7. So you see we have a better contrast for the noise. And I don't want the white part to be white. I want it to be something very dark. So something like 0.17. Okay, it should be dark like this. And now create a map node. And we will add this with this map range node right here. This is the one. So connect this one down here like so. We should have something like this. Now we can use another map range node to control the heterochromia. So set this to 1 and this to 0. So you see we have a mask to control the heterochromia. And let's lower the from min value as well as the from max value like this. Okay. And we can now use this to control the color. Like so. So this is the base color and this is the color of the heterochromia. So I can set this to something like yellow, and let's see. You see, we now have some very nice heterochromia going on. And we can use this map range node to control the spread of the second layer, the second color. You see, it looks very nice, right? But I want just a single parameter to control both of these. Okay, I don't want to play around with these two parameters. It's hard to control and it's annoying. So I'm gonna create a value node like that, and let's set this to 0.2 for now, and duplicate this map range node, connect this into the map range node, and 0 to 1, okay, like that. This should be 0.01 and this is 0.1. Okay, this will be the from min value, and another map range node. Okay, this will be 0.01 and this will be 1, like so, and this will be the from max value. Okay, so now I can decrease this to 0 to get rid of all the heterochromia, and I can increase this to 1 to get a lot of heterochromia, something like that. All right, that's it with the heterochromia. The next thing we need to add is the dark ring around the iris. All right, and to do that, we will reuse this add node right here. So let me just change the color so that we can see it a little more clearly. There we go. And this time, let's add a RGB curve node and connect this into the color. And again, I want to make a bell curve like that. And then I'm gonna invert this color using a math node. Subtract 1 subtract by this value. All right. Now let's move this node all the way here. And now we can create a hue saturation value node and manipulate this color, right? So let me just bring it all the way down here. And I will connect this into the value node, the value slot like so. And let's see. You see, it's starting to work, but it's a little too much. And you can actually use this slider to control the effects. And I think we should also go back here and increase this a little bit, like that. Yeah, I think this looks a lot better. Okay, the eye texture is done. The next thing to do is to create a node group so that we can reuse this eye texture later on. But first, let's switch this back to Filmic. There we go. And let's see how it looks with the outside layer. So you see, it's beautiful. Okay. So let's go ahead and group this into a node group. So select everything except for the first UV map node and the final material output node. Okay, select everything in between. Control G to group everything into a node group, and Control Tab to go back out. All right, we can now name this eye generator. All right, now it's time we create the parameters to control the eye texture. Okay, so first let's create a parameter to replace this value node. So get rid of the wires, and you can actually just connect this into the group input node in order to create a parameter. However, if you go out and you change this slider, you see it's nasty. We need a slider from 0 to 1 that is more precise than this. So instead of doing that, I will now delete this. All right, and I'm going to create a mixed RGB node, and I will use this factor to create a parameter for the group input node, like so. And this will be the stretch power. All right, set the default value to 0.25 and connect this into the square root node. And let's go back out and see for ourselves. So you see this is no stretch at all, and the higher the value, the more stretch we have. All right, something like that. Next, we need two parameters to control these two colors. So create the group input node. There we go. And get rid of these two RGB color. And we will connect these two colors to the group input node to create the parameters. All right. This one will be here and this one will be here. Let's move the stretch power here. Next, we need to control this parameter as well. So create a group input node. And again, we want a slider from 0 to 1. So we need to create a input of that type. So I can now just connect this roughness in here like so and get rid of the wires and rename this roughness to heterochromia. There we go. And connect this into this reroute node. There we go. And let's test the parameter. All right, it looks fine. And again, we will move this up, maybe let's say here. The next parameter is something to control the scale of the texture. So create a group input node and connect this scale in here and move it here. All right. And we will reuse this scale input to control the scale for all the textures. So here we are gonna use a math node to change up this color, this value a bit. Let's add 5 here, or maybe 3. There we go. And use the same scale to control this noise texture, which is the noise of the heterochromia and the darkening. So again, create a math node, and this time we will multiply this by a certain number, 5 maybe. Yeah, about that much. All right, now let's copy these two nodes over here. This is the fibrous bump texture that we created earlier. And we can now connect this into the scale as well. But this time, let's multiply it with a different number. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, the next parameter we need to create is something to control this factor right here. So create the group input node and connect this factor into the group input node. And this will be the darkening parameter. There we go. And move it here. Okay, let's go back out and see the effects of the parameters. And one final parameter that I want to add is a random seed value to control the randomness of the holes. I want to somehow randomize the whole arrangement using a parameter. So let's go back here and group all of these wires and move all of these back here. This is the angular texture coordinate that we created earlier. Let's create a vector math node and add this texture coordinate with a certain number. So Let's go back to here and connect this to the group input node to create a new parameter and get rid of the wire. And copy this node here. And now we can just add this vector with this value. Okay, and this value will be seed. There we go. And move it up here. So now I can change this seed value to randomize the whole arrangement. All right, the eye texture is finished. And if you've made it this far, then congratulations, you have a very nice eye texture for yourself. And again, for those of you who don't want to spend time to create the eye texture for yourself, you can buy this eye texture on my Gumroad or my Blender Market store. I'll put the links in the description. Okay, that's it. I hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.